Well, welcome
Yeah.
everyone. Welcome to the Crunchy Take podcast, where we will be reacting today, the first 20 minutes or so, to the episodes 7 and 8 of The Last Dance. Boom! How's it going, Eric?
Not bad. How you doing over there, huh?
I'm doing all right, man. It's gotten a little hot here, and it's like gone up and down as far as the humidity goes. How's the weather on your end?
Oh, it's beautiful California, man.
Beautiful
Can't
California.
complain. Can't complain.
Can't
We
complain.
don't get
Can't
that.
complain.
We don't get that Midwest humidity like you do over there.
Do you not really?
Humid, no, no.
But you get everything dry, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's just nice. I can't complain, dude. I spent the last summer in Chicago, and no, I did. I spent the last summer here. I've spent summers in Chicago, and it's miserable, man.
So wait, when was the last time you were in Chicago?
Last time was last year, but
Last year.
I went to go visit
Gotcha.
the end of summer. You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying. You spent how many years out in Chicago?
It's 3 years.
3 years. 3 years you spent in the heartland of the Michael Jordan.
That
Okay.
is true. You'd be surprised though. People don't talk about Michael Jordan. Everyone, everyone wears Jordans, including the homeless people, which I thought was interesting. But nobody talks about it unless you want to kind of get into debates.
Uh huh.
Being a Warriors fan and whatnot, or being from the Bay Area.
Mhm.
That's when my Chicago friends were kind of quick to pull the '90s Jordan card.
The
But no,
'90s.
never talked about it. It seemed like at the time. Anyways, yeah. It's
No,
just
no, no, no. It's interesting because this episode, well, at least the first one
mm.
showed me more Jay's talk, which we'll get to in a little bit. But for everyone in
Are you talking about
attendance,
episode 5?
no, 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 no. I think no. We were watching yesterday, if I'm correct, was 7 and 8. Am I right? Am I
I think
crazy?
it was 5 and 6.
It's 5 and 6. Oh crap.
Oh,
I
dude,
don't know.
this is episode 1 of your show, man. You
I
forgot
don't know. I
episode
may have
1
lost count,
already?
but no. What I do know is the subject matter. So what was promised to us last week was that, I mean, at least in the text message that you sent me, was we were gonna see something about a little snippet, however big, about
Mm.
Kobe Bryant,
They threw a
and
little Kobe in there. That was nice.
they threw a little Kobe in there, and then a lot. At one point throughout yesterday, you texted me. Yeah, is this a documentary about the Bulls or is it about Michael Jordan?
Look, I'm not complaining, man, because you don't think 85% of the questions, whether let's say if you're a reporter and you know that like the broad spectrum or subject is about the Chicago Bulls final season, you don't think 85 to 90% of the questions all have to do with just Michael Jordan?
Yeah.
It's a guilty pleasure. We've gotten all the Michael Jordan documentaries. You know, I'll take more. I don't care. This is footage. This is new footage.
It's new footage, but
It's
I
exciting,
kind of wish it's the same. I have almost the same reaction I've had for the past um that I've had for the past few weeks, is that they
Mm,
keep doing this history lesson thing that they go from, oh,
mm,
1998. They
mm.
it's, I don't want to say the word honey dick, but it's almost like they tease you with the 1998 just HD footage, and then they go back to like 1991, which is
It is,
still, I
yeah.
think, a portion of it is probably from the vault, you know. There's probably a
Yeah.
lot that we're not seeing that we've never seen. Have, like, when it went to 91 or 92, have you
Yeah.
seen most of that footage?
A lot of it, no. They, dude, I've seen all the footage of Bulls documentaries, and they
Some of
just
it you haven't seen.
there's a lot of new stuff on there.
That's fascinating. One, some of the new stuff. One of the new stuff that I was just on pines and needles. I
Mm.
was the Dream Team one. Was that just a little more of that game that they keep talking about? In the Dream Team
Yeah, but
documentary.
they came out with the Dream Team documentary. God, I don't know what year it was, but it was excellent.
It was within the past 5 years, but what I'm trying to say is what we saw yesterday, we may
Hmm.
have seen a little more. We may have seen a little more of those clips that they use for that
Yeah, they did.
documentary.
All the if you notice, all the All Star game the '98 All Star game
Oh yeah.
was all it's all recycled. Some of it was zoomed in a little bit more. Some of it might have been enhanced a little bit more to make it seem, like the coloring or the high def part of it.
Yeah.
But it's all the exact same footage. I
Yeah.
almost like worded all of it, because I remember all of the broadcasting. When Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant are crossing paths when the game is over, just congratulating each other or whatnot. Michael
Yeah.
Jordan pat him on the butt. I'll see you down the road. Like that was yeah.
See, with the Kobe aspect, I thought it was neat that, and in the basketball fan in me kind of wanted more. I thought it was, because
Yeah, yeah.
You saw Kobe in the trailer, and you thought, oh, this guy's he's gonna break down Jordan's game like he does on Detail, you know?
No, no. I don't see the point because of. I think he just tried to get his point across that he just
Yeah.
MJ was somebody that he went to as a mentor. You know.
I like his mentality of, whenever you know the late Kobe Bryant. It's first of all, what was your reaction when you saw just? I mean, it was teased. It was kind of spoiled to you, but you saw
Yeah.
just in the pre-show it said in loving memory of Kobe Bryant. It's just
Yeah. It's just weird. I mean, this
it'll
footage
always
is
be
gonna-
weird.
Yeah, it's always weird just because it's like, he's gone, but this is new stuff that we haven't seen yet. This has been kept. So, but
Yeah.
it was. I mean, it was cool to see. Either way.
Yeah, it was short and it was concise. And what I like about Kobe is in interviews, he consistently says this in almost every interview that he says whenever someone tries to compare him to MJ, it's like
Yeah.
I cannot objectively and definitively go back and play him,
Yeah.
unless you create a time machine. And I really wish that's something that a lot of these other players would say. One in particular that I'm not going to get
Yeah.
to just yet.
Mm.
Zircon, Pines and Needles. The reason I say Pines and Needles is because that dream team might be the greatest team of all time. Would you say the greatest team ever assembled in team sports?
Yeah. It
You
would
can't
be,
say the Warriors.
but you can't. You could, but you can't. You can't compare other I don't know, dude. Like at the time, this is why I don't like these comparisons because players play different at different times. Athleticism.
Yeah.
The standards of athleticism is different. Skill set is different at different times. But yeah, you could say the same about the 2012 team. Oh no, I'm sorry, the 2008 team. But yeah. But 92 was they consider that it's been said over and over. It's the greatest team ever assembled in team sports.
Um, I think the reason I think the reason that term is ascribed to it is just because it's likely the most influential team. You think about just where the
Everything,
world
culture, yeah.
yeah, where the world was then when it came to basketball. It's just like the US didn't have to send their best players. Like the whole reason the dream team was a big deal was because what people didn't know if NBA players like at the highest level could gel together and whether they wanted to play in the Olympics or not, right? But
Well, that was a little bit of it, but most of it is because before, if you played in the NBA, you were considered a professional player, and the Olympics only allowed amateur players, which were
Just
college
wild.
students. In I don't know why this.
It used
doesn't
to
make
be.
sense,
It
but-
used
but
to
these-
be.
But these are the rules.
Mhm.
So, if you're a college player in the United States, you're considered amateur. But if you play overseas professionally, like let's say you played in Spain or something, you were still considered an amateur if you played professionally. It's really strange.
They still do that weird amateur thing. Like, I don't remember what it was 2008, and I don't remember what it was for 2016. But I remember when Anthony Davis won uh, the title with Kentucky. He was invited to be on the team that same year.
Mhm.
Now,
Yeah.
everyone knows. I mean, now it's pretty obvious he deserved to be on that team. But, if you had to replace Christian Laettner, who would you have gone
there's
with?
no, there's absolutely no question. It's so funny. Like our first real getting into is about this dream team, which is fine. But it's funny because an easy pick. Even Christian Laettner got in because I think he won every possible award.
He was great in
for a
college.
player. Oh, he was great. He was amazing.
Did you ever see the documentary I Hate
Christian
Christian Laettner? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's amazing. Oh,
I
great.
stumbled upon it. I don't I don't remember who was it.
Yeah.
ESPN
Uh,
or was it
I
HBO?
I don't know.
It was
It
some.
had to have been It had to be ESPN. I thought ESPN is the one that does the 30 for 30s.
I stumbled. I quite honestly, I stumbled upon it as an accident. I didn't know he was tied to Duke. I didn't know there was that whole
Oh
like
yeah,
thing.
accidents are the best. You know, as they
Yeah.
say, the best, or as I like to say all the time, the best plan is no plan, dude. You stumble on these gems every here and there.
And so
So
at that point, you'd still give it to Christian Leitner over someone like
no, at that point, if I had a
Shaq.
choice, but I don't, and also if most people had a choice,
Hmm.
Shaquille O'Neal was the other one. He was the guy that came in that he was the other like option
Hmm.
to play on the Dream Team. It was Shaquille O'Neal because that year, oh damn it, did they come out in the same draft? I'd have to look it up, but Shaquille O'Neal was picked first in that draft where Christian Laettner did win Player of the Year. I got to double check that though.
So
Um,
92. 92
but
is the year they went to the Olympics. So he must have been drafted in 92.
yeah, also the Christian Laettner made a really good point in that documentary where I don't know if it was his documentary or the Dream Team documentary, but when you're even if you're the best college player ever, and you're
Hmm.
playing on this team, the '92 Dream Team, with these Hall of Famers, with
Yeah.
these killers,
Yeah.
you're not getting any. It doesn't matter. You're not getting any game time. Christian
Not
Laettner,
yeah.
you go from being the best college player in the world or the best whatever amateur player in the world to just playing garbage minutes on this team. And Christian Laettner was explaining that ego-wise, he can handle it a lot better than somebody like Shaquille O'Neal could. I
It's
think it would have hurt
fascinating.
Shaquille O'Neal more to be put in a role like that.
Yeah.
But yes, it was the same draft. Shaquille O'Neal went number 1, and Laettner went number 3.
Did Lait so how did Leitner's cuz it was Leitner and Bobby Hurley I think that were the Duke products cuz Bobby Hurley is tied to the Dream Team because of
It
the
was a bunch, dude. It was Grant Hill, Christian Laettner, Bobby Hurley.
talk about a great college team because
Yeah,
it was and Grant Hill and Bobby Hurley Jr. his father who coaches at St. Mary's um
yeah.
St. Anthony's, I'm sorry. It was the one game that the Dream Team lost to, right? Supposedly because
Because they were motivated. They didn't. But this is something else, man. Like you gotta watch this documentary. Check it out. It's
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. Kind
The
of
Dream Team.
circling back to the Last Dance.
Yes.
Let's go right off the top. Well, what were your initial thoughts like in comparison to what we've seen before and then what was
Mo-
going through your mind?
more this. I mean, more the same. It's just. I don't really care what. Not that I don't care what they put out. Like whatever they put out is good. Like it's solid.
Hmm.
The damn oh god. One thing I love the most about, let's say, a movie or a show, like if there's an intro to something, if they don't play the intro right away, let's say they play a few clips before to get us a little hyped up, and
Yeah.
then they play the intro to it.
Hmm.
And I don't know if it's just me. I'm kind of a nerd, but for like I get goosebumps when I hear the intro. It reminds me of the Mandalorian intro, But
I'm
that's
starting to see a little more of it now because they have a concrete theme. It's like they went all out for this documentary.
yeah,
They got a composer to do like motifs. So you notice at every
as they should. I mean, ESPN got money. And
absolutely.
if you're getting footage like this, if you're getting this much Michael Jordan like interview time, you better go all out for it.
Yeah.
I've never seen. Is he? He has to be the most interviewed person in all of this documentary. No,
Jordan?
Michael Jordan.
Probably.
Yeah,
I mean, and that's wild to think because he's been just mysterious in the media for years. You
he
know,
never does this.
he
And
never
this is
does
why
this.
it's so special.
Yeah. I saw,
But
I did see a
yeah,
little bit though. I was reading the other day in the Wall Street Journal. There's this documentary specialist, kind of journalist. His name is Ken Burns. You ever heard of him? So
no.
Ken Burns, Ken
That's you in
Burns.
the journalist world, dude. I would know one journalist is Ariel Helwani. You know what Ariel Helwani is?
Hey, Ariel Helwani is pretty. Well, he gets on a lot of fighters' nerves, but he does the dirty work in
He's
covering.
he's my that's literally the only journalist that I know.
Oh,
But yeah,
come on, you know more than that. You
maybe we talked about this. There's this one no, I whatever. Anyways, yeah, go on.
no, no, no. But he said Ken Burns, and it's kind of he made a point that's kind of been racking uh that's been in the back of my mind for a little bit since seeing this documentary. It's wildly entertaining,
Yeah, yeah.
but I don't necessarily think it's good journalism. Uh
What?
and and this guy came out
Ooh.
and said it is flat out not good journalism, and the reason is, oh boy. And the
What?
reason
Oh shit. Go.
is
You
because
can see
it's
this.
Jordan um his 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 whole take, and you have to understand Ken Burns is like a really influential journalist. He's a guy who
Okay.
makes a ton of like historic documentaries documenting, jazz from the 1960s and whatnot. And he says the reason this documentary isn't really a documentary in that sense and it's not proper journalism is
Yeah.
because you have a source that's dictating and almost manipulating the story that's being told. And so, how do you react to that? Do you find that to be true, or
Look.
objectively, or
Look. I'll tell you what. What percentage of viewers know what the criteria or proper steps to making a documentary is? What? How many people? Okay, I'll tell you right. I have no idea what it is. Okay, I'm sure it's a low percentage, but whatever I'm watching, I'm okay with it. Okay. Wait.
are you saying that the majority of the people that watch this documentary or any like ESPN 30 for 30, are you saying that aren't they aren't looking for anything else other than entertainment value? Is it
I don't know about entertainment value. I mean, we're getting information, we're getting stories. Yeah, there's some entertainment, but I don't know what the criteria of what a proper documentary is. So if someone, if this reporter or whatever or journalist is saying they're not following proper precautions or steps or whatnot,
I guess
I don't
it's for me it's a little too early to say because we
know.
haven't seen the series conclude yet. That'll be what, in the next 2 weeks or next
Two more
week?
weeks.
Yeah, 2 weeks, man. We waited since 2018 for this, and it comes down to these next 2 weeks. So it's
Yeah.
gonna be it's gonna be interesting to see. What were something I thought about as I was watching the doc was that every turn, I mean, yeah, at every turn where Jordan encounters conflict, he always kind of circles back to that idea of, you know, proving other people wrong.
How so?
Almost like an egomaniac. I don't know. It kind of turned
I
me
mean,
on to
yeah, that's true. But yeah.
how much of an egomaniac he was. Like he would take things that weren't necessarily things. Like, the reason or what was insinuated to me by watching was, he would make competition in his mind to compete with the people on the floor. You know. So for example, when he went to the Olympics or whatnot, he had this he was reading into what Jerry Krause was saying about Tony Kukoc at the time, like, oh, this guy's gonna come in and be all that for us. And
Yeah.
any other player, I don't know, maybe
Yeah.
players in the 90s and 80s were just that much more sensitive about
It's
certain
not about.
issues.
It's not sensitive, man. It's just they're. You gotta find a way to motivate yourself, even if you're making up something in your mind, dude. Because in reality, the Tony Kukoc deal or the what however that went,
Hmm.
I bet it was really just Jerry Krause. Like we got this really because as I said before, like in the early '90s, what NBA managers or GMs were trying to do are find these overseas gems,
Hmm.
um, and Tony
Which is
Kukoc
still
is
what
one of
they're
the
trying to do
first.
today.
So they're doing it all the time, but I mean like the beginning of it or when it really was
Yeah.
happening was I think early '90s, and what really happened was they saw this kid Tony Kukoc from Croatia.
Hmm.
I didn't know that he was getting paid that much though. Like this is something that I learned just kind of like the whole Scottie Pippen thing, the first two episodes of him being underpaid, but finding out about let's say these players are finding out Tony Kukoc, Jared Krause is already like wowing this dude, just probably mostly from potential or whatnot,
Yeah.
and and the whole thing about Michael Jordan saying it's like having it's like you're with your father and your brothers or whatever, and
Oh
his kids,
man.
and you have all these things that you've done, all these, but he doesn't care. He cares about this other kid. Like that's the stuff that
I never thought of it
he,
like that before
that's the
because
stuff that you got to plant in your mind to motivate you to do. You
right.
know,
Because with Jordan, that goes back even further to like him in his childhood, him having to compete with his older brother, and because you saw
it
in the
could, yeah,
first two
it's a different
episodes.
kind of thing though, because with that, Jordan learned he got that competitive drive, or or the madness or whatnot from losing.
Yeah.
That's a little different. This is another situation where he's the best, but he has to make something up to to motivate himself to
Yeah.
you know to get the job done. And did they?
Yeah, they did. But I just never, I can't believe it took this yesterday's two episodes for me to finally, because you always think competitiveness, it just ends on the court. For most athletes, it's like they, I mean, I'm excluding the ones at the very, very top like Michael Jordan, but even players like, I mean, they're compared often, he's compared often to that of, uh, Tiger Woods or these other all-time greats, but there's just something
Oh
else
yeah,
about
it's
Michael Jordan that he's just always psychologically there. He's always
yeah,
on like gear 11, which is why when people say, "Hey, if you were an NBA player, who would who would you want to be on the team with? Who would you more want to be on the team with? Someone
yeah.
like a
People, yeah,
Magic or someone like a MJ, the other
they're
MJ?
all they're all mad.
They're all
You know,
crazy.
they're all crazy. But I think current day, I think if you want to talk about an all time great that you want to play for, I think people say LeBron because I mean, the league is so damn friendly right now. It's kind of annoying actually, but a little too buddy buddy.
It is a little too buddy buddy, but by that same token, I'm going by something that Draymond says. If I'm your
Mhm.
friend,
Yeah,
if Draymond Green, if I'm your friend, if you're my enemy and we're on the court playing, sure, there's always going to be that animosity, right? But
yeah,
there's always going to be that cool competitiveness that maybe drives the ratings. But if I'm your friend, I want to beat you even more, which is the same mentality that Jordan had. Jordan would
why not?
almost wine and dine his players.
Yeah,
Like Danny Ainge or whatnot. Supposedly they would play golf together, right? Or
and yeah, they played golf. Danny Ainge, he would take if the Knicks are in town, Michael Jordan's taking Patrick Ewing and Charles Oakley, to a nice steak dinner the night
hmm
before.
which is weird to think because you hear them talk about him now, and it's
Yep.
almost like it's this weird kind of almost Stockholm syndrome where, oh yeah, the guy that I lost to is better than the guy that y'all are losing to. Oh and yeah, by the way, the guy that I lost to, we went to dinner the night before. It's almost like they're proud of it, you know.
I don't know if they're proud. I don't know. I don't know, man. I don't know where you got that from.
But no, 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 no. It's just maybe an image thing that I see sometimes with these athletes that just are so gung ho about their genre and their era. Because I don't. The only time I'll feed into the comparisons is just from a historic standpoint. Where did the game change? You know. Um.
Yes. Well, yeah. If you bring in more, if you bring in culture, yeah, and literally changing of the game, perhaps rules. Someone like an Allen Iverson who changed
Yeah.
rules, then that's where you can put more weight in these conversations. But
And,
skills and wise, yeah.
and talking about changing the game, Michael Jordan not only, as you and I know, he not only revolutionized basketball, he literally revolutionized culture and fashion. Uh,
Yes, yes.
it's surreal to kind of hear and see the footage of him going to Nike for the first time, and the fact that his mom made him do it.
Dude, I saw this hilarious meme right before I came onto this. But I saw a meme. It showed Michael Jordan's mom. I think her name is Dolores. Dolores
Yeah,
Jordan.
Dolores.
Oh, it's so funny. It just showed a picture of her, and then the meme said, like, this is, this is the woman that forever changed the history of, the sneaker
Sneakers.
culture game.
She is though. She has to be.
Because it's so funny. I don't know if that's like a southern politeness thing. She literally told him, like, look, you don't have to sign with them. You have to go just out of the decency because they invited you.
Yeah. Oh,
That's
and
literally why he went.
I didn't take it like that. I thought she was telling him, "Hey, as a businessman, you've got to explore all options. You've got
Yeah,
to
yeah,
like you've
that's
got to
exactly what it is.
go
Yeah,
you've got to go like chase your crop or whatever."
yeah.
That's not the saying, but yeah.
Well,
So Dolores Jordan is
yeah,
almost single-handedly responsible for, and I mean, Sonny Vaccaro and all these other players.
possibly, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
But also, you gotta look wherever he went.
it was
I don't.
gonna be
I mean,
big.
yeah. You don't know what's gonna happen as far as the creativeness or like
Yeah.
what they would have done. Because if he would have went with Converse, he's just another name on a brand. which is
Yeah.
crazy because nowadays that's what Nike is. But
My
it's
God,
whatever.
when they were playing those ads in the documentary, it's just like the most. I had a friend that I was watching with. He told me this is likely the most cringiest. This has to be the most cringiest thing I've seen. It's the
The one with it was like Magic Isaiah letters.
Magic Isaiah. Was it Magic Isaiah or Magic freaking Dikembe
No,
Larry?
no, it was Magic. It was Magic Johnson, Isaiah, Magic, Isaiah, Larry Bird. I think there was two other players, but at the end of it, the whole twist was Larry Bird showed off his MVP trophy or something.
Uh huh. And he just
Yeah, that
had
was
like
hilarious. Yeah.
they all had the same silhouette shoe with like the same kind of. It was the Converse.
Uh,
What were they
it
called?
was called the Converse Weapon. It was the colorway was just but different by team.
I wonder if they
Like, why
retroed
would you
them
want to wear
now.
that? And then initially Jordan he admitted it. Do you remember a book? I think I gave it to you.
Was it kind
It's
of like the
mostly
graphic? It's like a graphic novel handbook. It's just like a big.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's like a autobiography.
yeah.
But it's like 75% shoes, 25% personal life.
Mhm.
And Jordan goes into pretty good detail about his thought process of Nike was last on his list. He wanted to go to Adidas, and I
Yeah.
don't know who was sponsored by Adidas back then in the 80s or I don't know.
Yeah. It's weird.
But I what?
No, no. I was just saying, like, I've. It's just so weird to see Jordan, who later in the documentary found a creative way to cover up the. I hadn't even thought about that. He took the American
Oh
flag
yeah,
and he covered the Reebok logo. You would think that's just it's just such a genius Jordan thing to put, like, what are you gonna say? It's the American flag. I'm wearing the
it's
damn
the American
jacket.
flag. Yeah,
I
when
didn't
he
even know the
realized
jacket was
he didn't rip it
Reebok.
off. He used his jersey instead. He didn't put a shirt over it. He put the American flag. Yeah.
And he was the only player. He was the only player on the team to do so, right?
Yeah, yeah, he was the only person to do that. And the first time that was put out, Michael Jordan, he had a. Oh my God, I don't know why I remember all this, but there was another like graphic or picture biography
Hmm.
type book that Michael Jordan came out. It was called Rare Air. I think it was like right after he retired.
That's still a saying today. Can you kind of explain the origin of that saying? Like,
Of what Rare Air?
yeah, because Nike
Oh,
sometimes they'll include it in their like products, like Rare Air. There's a pair of Jordans called the Jordan Undefeated. It's the four, and there are 72 pairs. It's
yeah,
supposedly it's one of the most expensive pairs out there. It's like you can find one for twenty four
yeah.
thousand
It's
dollars.
like dark green and
And
like
yeah,
orange.
and underneath
Yeah.
it says Red Air. It's like a
Rare
Velcro
Air.
strap. Yeah, what is that from?
I don't know. I just know that he had a book. He had a book that came out like this.
Hmm.
It was more of a picture book. That was called Rare Air after
Yeah.
his second retirement.
It's just
And
weird.
and in
Yeah.
that it showed pictures from the Dream Team,
Hmm.
and then Jordan explaining like he didn't want any issues with Nike because their uniforms on the Dream Team was sponsored by Reebok.
Right.
So that's what he just covered it up like that.
And you have to
What?
imagine if Jordan hadn't had the peace of mind, do you think Reebok would have exploited that image to hell and back like Nike does with all its NBA athletes?
I don't know. Probably not. If anything, it just helped.
Yeah.
It just helped Michael in Nike's graces more so than
Yeah.
anything else.
I don't know about you, but I like it when they show stuff like that. I like it, because
Yeah.
brand and marketing or not, it can kind of be seen as
Yeah.
a marketing
Yeah.
ploy, but at this point, it's culture. When he says I like
It was culture.
Adidas,
Yeah.
a young Michael
I didn't know
Jordan,
that because back then you have basketball sneakers, right?
yeah,
People wore those shoes to play basketball.
period.
And I didn't realize that the Jordans were the first shoes to where people wore it with they just wore it out like
Mhm.
with their regular clothes, street clothes or whatnot.
Yeah, you
That
kind
was
of
pretty
wonder.
fascinating.
You kind of
You know
wonder
what's
if they
funny
still
too?
have that
Like
sign.
what?
You gotta wonder if they still have that sign that says "Welcome." It was a footage of him walking to Nike, and it just said, "Hey, welcome to Nike, Jordan." Like Jordan, like Nike welcomes you, Jordan, or whatnot. Do you remember that? I wonder
No,
if
no.
that's somewhere in the vault. What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say it's funny about Nike too because look, I know you love the ones, but I think they're one of the worst Jordans. They're literally
Oh,
just
for
dumps.
sure. I was just about to touch on that. What's your favorite
Yeah.
Jordan, dude? Like, what was your first pair? What was your
that's the
first
whole-
pair? And then what's your favorite?
My first pair of Jordans ever,
Yes,
the Olympic 7.
that you can. Dang. So
Olympic 7s.
it's the one he wore to the Dream Dream Team, right?
Yeah, it was mostly white,
Yeah.
white, a little bit of gray, and then like gold, blue, and red on the
The
bottom.
sevens.
But what I'm trying to get at is that I think, look, the Jordan ones obviously are iconic. You know, they were his first shoe. I think they're one of the uglier of the
You
Jordans.
think
They're
they're one
literally
of
just
the
dunks.
uglier shoes?
The uglier of the
Oh
Air
my
Jordans. They're
goodness.
literally just dunks that are high tops. Look, I'm just talking
Whoa.
shit or whatever. I've had plenty of pairs of ones.
I
I'll still
know,
wear
I
them
know.
here.
It's just wild coming from you because like the ones
Yeah,
are just like,
they're kind of and back then in '85 you had like I think NBA teams had their own specific shoe that they had to wear
mhm.
or shoes that had to get passed where you could wear it, but
What were some of those
Michael Jordan with Air
regulations?
Jordans, he was not allowed to do it. He was fined $5,000 per game, and Nike just paid
And
for it.
Nike
So, like,
paid for it. It was like the
that's
perfect
because
marketing campaign.
it's a perfect marketing scheme too. Like $5,000, like that's all you got to pay. I mean, even back then that's probably a lot, but if that's all you got to pay is $5,000 for some like marketing.
Yeah.
On
It
your
wasn't
shoe,
it was people what a lot of people don't notice or don't realize it wasn't the bread ones that we know about. It was just some other it was even before the bread ones were supposed to come out. It was just like pair of like it's kind of like you said like high top dunks or whatnot that were
I think
colored
they
a little
were.
differently. But because
Yeah.
because the league came down on it supposedly because it didn't
Mm.
really match quote unquote didn't have enough white or whatever. Nike
Yeah.
like used that as fuel. It was just like the perfect storm. So you think the ones are the ugliest, dude? I think they look the most
Well,
beautiful the more you beat them
reason I'm
up.
getting at this is because in this documentary, I mean, it's also been documented that Jordan didn't want to go to Nike. I think that was like the last on his totem
Yeah.
on the totem pole of shoes to sign with, and then there were the Jordan ones. Like that's kind of whatever, right? He made a lot of money, like more than double of what all the top players made from the shoe deals.
Mhm.
Do you remember what the Jordan 2s look like?
They were supposed to be like a fashion Italian kind of deal, like the
Yeah,
yeah.
those are hideous compared to
He
the
mostly
ones, right?
wore the lows of those in the game. That's the shoe he wore when he
No,
broke his foot,
he
right?
he wore the highs mostly. He would wear the lows sometimes.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't until the
The
threes,
three.
right before the threes came out. If you read that book, that documentary that I gave
He
you,
was gonna leave Adidas. He was gonna leave
he
Nike.
was gonna leave. He was gonna leave Nike. He's like, screw this. I'm done with y'all. Like, there's nothing you can do to
Yeah.
convince me. And then the guy Tinker. I'm sure you know
Tinker
who is.
Hatfield. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, anyone in shoe culture knows who Tinker is. He was like, all right, this is my Hail Mary, and he showed about ready to the room, the meeting or whatever.
Yeah.
And then Tinker shows him the threes, and then Jordan just like, oh, what's
Oh. And the rest of the sporting world went crazy.
that's it? Yeah.
Was it the threes that Spike Lee came out with that Mars Blackman character?
No, Mars Blackman was
The fours.
it might have been the threes first, but I believe the fours were in his movie. What is it called? It's one of his movies. He had the fours in it.
Something. It's in Brooklyn. Oh God, I don't know the movie name.
It's kind of bad that we don't know this movie. It's like one of those like historic, iconic.
Well, I've never.
Yeah.
Truth be told, I'll be honest. I've never seen it. I've only seen that one clip where the guy steps on the dude's like Jordan 4.
Oh, this is bad, dude. We gotta look this up, dude. Like we should know this. If anybody watches this, okay, all three viewers, which all three of us, all three are gonna be our relatives.
Do the right thing.
Do the right thing. Yes.
Yeah.
Dude, my dad right now is probably like, hey, I thought they're gonna have a show. He's probably on the TV. Did I tell you about this? He said James just said tune in. Like, so he just assumed that it's gonna be on TV.
Well, it can be on TV if you have Twitch on on your TV. If you
But
just
you're
if you have a
gonna
web browser on your
re-upload,
TV or whatnot.
Yeah, you're gonna re-upload this like on YouTube or whatever tomorrow, right?
Pretty much. Yep. Pretty
Okay,
much. Later
cool.
tonight
Okay,
or whatever.
I'll tell my dad about watching
No, it'll only be.
Yeah. He's probably so excited to watch this, and then he's gonna watch and be like, oh.
Well, he still can. So it's but I can get into it later. But yeah, it'll
Well, yeah, we're not gonna do this.
audio pro. Anyway, back to the subject of Jordans. I found it's pretty on par with what you're saying. It's probably the worst Jordan because it's the first. It was the first one, and Jordan he wore it when he thought it was gonna be his last game in the Garden. You saw that, right? And he said by halftime my feet were bleeding.
Yeah,
Dude.
because they were like a size or two too small.
Oh, that's why. It wasn't the design of the shoe. It was just the fact that he was wearing.
It's because his feet grew throughout his career.
Oh.
Maybe, like I said, maybe one or two sizes.
Because
And when
he
you're
wait, what
that
did he
height,
start off with?
I don't know.
Because
I
it's
think He was 13 and a half.
13
Let's
and
say
a half. That's the size everybody knows about. You know.
yeah, but let's just say when he got in the league, let's say he was a size 12. You know, like
Hmm.
that could be a huge difference. Also, I mean, you played organized basketball for a school. When I don't know if you ever got your ankles taped up, but
Oh yeah.
I guarantee every NBA player has their ankles taped up before every game.
I
And
think
to
it's a
add
borderline
add that
requirement.
layer, huh?
I think it's a borderline requirement, either
Yeah,
ankles
probably.
taped up
But, but, but
or
yeah,
some
but
type of orthotics.
can you imagine wearing a shoe that's one or two sizes smaller than what you're supposed to wear?
Oh
And then
Jesus.
also there's that other layer of protection that you need to have on, and it's going to make the shoe seem even
Oh
tighter than
my
it is.
God. Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
It
And
must have been. It must have been. God, it must have been
do you
torture.
remember what
But
Jordan scored?
when you're that insane, when you're that crazy, this dude, Michael Jordan said by halftime my feet were bleeding. Oh, but I was having a good game, so I kept them on. Like, what? You know?
Yeah.
And he scored. I believe he scored 38 points. He scored 38 points that game. Here's a fun fact. He scored 38 points, and then I don't know if you saw there was a few plays where he drove. It was on the left side. He drove. He got fouled. He kind of twisted sideways. He randomly threw it up, hit the backboard, and went in. Right.
Hmm.
In the documentary, they were saying everyone just laughed because it was like whatever. That actually won the number one play of the year, according to like Inside Stuff or like NBA.com or
Did it
whatever.
deserve to win? Did that play in
If you watch
particular
other plays,
deserve
probably
to?
not. It probably not if you
Did
watch
they
all the
just
other
give it
plays.
to
It
him
was just
because
so
he was
funny.
Michael Jordan?
Yeah, it was just so funny. You know who Ahmad Rashad is, right?
Yes.
Dude, I love seeing Ahmad Rashad in the hotel lobby wearing this NBA Inside Stuff shirt. This
Big, like
obnoxious,
just yeah.
colorful shirt. It was so cool.
Yeah, yeah,
And I love the thing I love about this documentary of just seeing candid Michael Jordan. He was kind of a dick.
yeah. He was kind of a dick, but then to others he wouldn't be. You know, I think he was a dick to you if he was expecting you to perform and he was. But yeah, yeah, kind of going back to the egomaniac thing, like he would compete with everyone. Like you saw what some of the footage I love most is him interacting
Yeah.
with the security guards. It's just like,
Yeah,
and he would
this
take
dude
their
was
money if they
everything.
lost.
Everything was a competition, dude. In the Rare Air documentary or book, someone was telling a story about how Michael Jordan, like they were playing cards. This is like early in Jordan's career, but they were playing cards at someone's house, like their
Yeah.
family's house. And then this dude was watching Michael Jordan, and this guy's mom was also playing against Michael Jordan, and he saw Michael Jordan cheat, like take a card or something, or like just blatantly cheated.
I think I've heard this, and Jordan's mom was like, "Nah."
It wasn't Jordan's mom. It was the guy's mom that was. This guy was watching Michael Jordan play or whatever, and he saw that Jordan was blatantly cheating against his mom or whatever. I'm like, that's crazy, man. That much to win, like that crazy about winning, and yeah, always.
Yeah.
It's so funny because in the documentary in Last Dance, they were because when they're on the plane or whatnot, they're gambling like in the back. Jordan, some players are gambling. These are like they're gambling
Yeah.
big money.
Just
And
like
in the
serious
front,
money.
you have,
A
I don't know
dollar a
exactly what it
piece,
was,
a
but
dollar a
it
hand or
was like
whatnot.
yeah, in the front of the bus they were doing dollar hands. Like if I played for the Bulls, that I would have front with the dollar hands.
And then Jordan would try to buy out the pot, like what's the number you're uncomfortable with? Okay, let's do that.
Yeah.
Just it's insane. Kind of segueing off of that, I have some hot fire questions for you. We'll get to you in a little bit.
Hot fire questions.
Yeah, just stuff I've not thought about. Do you think
What do we got?
the media attention that Jordan had then, like, how would you compare it to now? Do you think it was worse then or now?
Uh,
Just and I'm saying specifically him. Would it be worse for him? Was it if he was playing now? Would it be worse
Yeah.
for him now or then? Or was it is it equal?
I don't, dude. I don't know, man. It's different then, because then
Hmm.
there had to have been more report. Like now, I think nowadays with technology, you have an idea of where people are going to be
Yeah.
at what time. I mean, back then, these reporters are camping. You know,
Yeah. That's one of the
they're
crazier
not
things,
sleeping.
and that's really how it is. That's still kind of how it is. Although it's a little more orderly now.
Yeah.
Maybe because Jordan was Jordan, you had that many. Wherever he went, you had more. You had national TV, and then you had local, right?
Yeah.
When I got to cover the Pacers last year, we interviewed
You
Coach
sure did, dude.
Coach McMillan and whatnot.
I did one of my Instagram live shows,
Yeah.
and then I mentioned I was like, I was I was mentioning about like, oh, I'm gonna recap the Jordan Last Dance documentary, and then I mentioned you, but I made you sound so like I made you like I named all your accolades. I was like, yeah,
Oh gosh.
he's a journalist, and I was like, he's a journalist.
I'm
He's
a
done some
wannabe journalist,
NCAA.
man.
He's done some NCAA games. I think he did one Pacers game. Like that was my description of you.
Oh my God. It was for okay, let me set the record straight then. It's for a class and it's one
Hey,
of the most hey man, it's experience is experience.
yeah, you had a
Inside
credential. You had a credential, right, or to get in?
I have media credentials right next to me. It's sitting on the fireplace right next to me.
There we go.
There we go.
That's
But no,
that Thailand flag, baby.
it's
Represent.
still kind of that way. People still crowd. You wouldn't think it, but media coverage, it's because when you're covering something, it's on you to get that into the paper. It's on
Yeah,
you to get that little bit. That's why you see people coming up to, hi, McMillan, and he was just I sort of felt for the guy because we were like
yeah.
we pinned him against a wall. And so you imagine that times 10 with any other great player or LeBron
Yeah, yeah.
James or Michael Jordan in that regard. But the and just like the space, and that's why security at arenas, if you're wondering why they're dicks or why they have
Yeah.
bad attitude, it's because of that. It's because they have to assume the worst in people. They have to
Yeah,
assume
they
that
yeah.
you're there to get something out of it, and you have to put in the groundwork. But no, I guess the question, at the core of the question is, you compare the social media influence that say or pressure that mounts on someone like a Stephen Curry or
Yeah.
if we're going that level, Floyd Mayweather, or people
Yeah.
like that. Is it worse now? I kind of think. How would Jordan
Uh
react if he was living now? Just like the scrutiny, severe scrutiny. Because what I may be going on a tangent here, but one of the craziest things watching this documentary is seeing how life used to be. These
yeah.
athletes genuinely could be alone. You know,
Yeah.
there were points that they genuinely could be alone and like just go out and do their thing. Like Dennis Rodman, his idea of a good time is go wood pit fire and just cooking your own food. Or the idea of these super athletes being able to go out and not be, obviously they still have to deal with autographs, but like, and people coming up to them, but it's not like people secretly taping them all over the place. You know,
Yeah. Oh jeez.
the
Yeah, I mean, I guess if
accessibility
you put it that
factor.
way, yeah, it could be. It's probably worse now.
Yeah,
I mean, he would have handled it fine either way.
and
What's your question?
no, I'm just, it's kind of a question of how how bad do you think it was? How was back then different than now in terms of media pressure, media and
Yeah.
societal pressure? Because now it's not just media pressure. Back then, your basketball news pretty much came from one of three sources. Now, if you go to a game, everyone is a source.
Everyone's a source.
If they
Oh god.
if they
Yeah.
want
Give
to,
me a
or
false source. Yeah.
yeah, it's a
Um.
different level.
I mean, I'd say it's worse now. Uh,
Sadly, yeah,
as
probably.
far as you know, official stuff, credentials wise,
Because
probably worse now.
you thought some of the stuff they were writing about the players back then was harsh. You
I
look
don't
at
know. I mean, it
now.
wasn't really. Yeah, maybe. I mean, there's just
You think about now. It's like it's one of the things that I keep thinking about when it comes to this documentary is it may not. It's good entertainment. It's hella good entertainment. But like the journalistic side of things, it's like when Jordan says, I wasn't in it for the gambling. You know, if I had a gambling problem, I would be suffering. I'd be down a house or divorce a wife or
yeah,
whatnot.
yeah.
The media
But
will today
when
will
you're
spin that. The media,
yeah.
sorry, I'll let you finish. But the media today will spin that and say Jordan denies that he has a gambling addiction, which is so sick. It's sick. Whereas
It's
before
a
it's just
yeah
said, yeah,
yeah. It's a form of rewording, but it's way it happens. It's way worse now.
yeah, yeah.
Rewording and changing narratives on
Hmm.
things. That's so funny because I mean, if you think about it, whoever it was in the documentary made a good point. They're like, "Look, betting $5,000 a hand for blackjack is a big deal for us. I would never do that.
Right. And
Like,
who
can you
was
imagine like Michael Jordan betting $5,000 a hand to us is like betting like like $2, $5, you know.
Yeah, because he has the capital to make it up. It's a video game to him, you know.
It really is. It's like monopoly money. It's just like it's play money,
Yep.
and that's something we know nothing about. We know nothing about being able to gamble that much money. Number one, number two, we don't have the competitive drive that he does.
And I was talking, I was talking to my parents yesterday. I was talking to my mom what she remembers. Like I asked her, you know, does this, and because they're watching it too. They
Dude, yeah, your mom, your parents or aunts and uncles or whatnot, they were in high school. Like they were, you were at an age where you remembered
Yeah.
or it was an influence of your time. It was like in high school when the coming up of Michael Jordan.
Yeah, and just we were talking something yesterday about how for most other athletes or for most other people, 99.9% of other people, when they're that competitive, it
Uh-huh.
eventually doesn't work out for them. It eventually cracks in their face. It eventually blows up. I think the reason people
Yeah.
are so fascinated by Jordan is because there's this illusion that he never failed. He never
There's
lost on
a
the court.
yes. Yeah.
It's an illusion, you know, because
Yeah.
that whole Atlanta City thing is that the case? Is that what it was called?
Yeah, that was a big deal at the time. But when was that? I think that was 90. Was that 92 or 93?
I
It was
I
one of
can't
those.
remember.
Yeah,
No,
I
no,
remember
it
the.
must have been. It was 93 because it was the first three-peat after he beat
Yeah, yeah,
uh, Charles Barkley. You have to think just like I don't know. For most people,
yeah,
for most of society, that would be a detriment to your career beyond recovery, right? But with
and
someone
here,
like
yeah,
Jordan, but with someone like Jordan, even he's able to rise above and then erase
yeah.
it. It's almost like it didn't even exist. You know, it's pretty
What's
insane.
funny about that? This is what this is why Jordan's kind of lucky being in his prime in that era
Hmm.
because uh, nowadays you're getting caught because people have video footage of you from their phone.
Yeah, and it can
Michael,
get you.
let's say we don't know the truth, right? Let's say the truth was Michael Jordan was in Atlantic City till 3 in the morning, right?
Hmm.
But Michael Jordan said, "Oh no, I was we were back by midnight or 11, whatever time he said they were." Back then, when you can't make video footage at any time, it's almost your word against everyone else.
Correct.
So Michael Jordan can just say, "No, I was." They're lying,
Yeah,
and there's no evidence, so that's why he can live off of that
yeah,
that's the cool thing about that. But I mean, we don't know what happened. But let's say Michael Jordan did say that late.
yeah.
It's yeah,
Your word against
yeah,
his,
exactly.
and at that
I mean,
time,
what does
his
that mean?
word was king. You know,
Mm,
it's not. I think it's so insane because now it's we've from 1990s to from the 90s to now, it's become almost the opposite. When an athlete says he didn't do something, you assume he did it. You know, all
yeah,
these like domestic cases, everything from money laundering, like you name it, your immediate reaction is that they did it.
yeah.
Whereas before, it's just, you kind of assume better out of an athlete. I don't know. I may be wrong there because
I don't know if you assume better, but look, there ain't no proof. So
there's no proof. All right. If
what's your you say surefire, but we spent 15 minutes on your first one.
no, that wasn't even a part of the hot fire
Oh,
questions. But let me make an announcement real quick. So right now we're
an
gonna move
announcement,
into right now we're gonna
an
move into
announcement.
our hot fire questions. If anybody
Okay.
listening in the future or currently wants to contribute to the podcast in any meaningful way, be sure to comment down below in the YouTube channel or my Facebook page or my Instagram page, which can be found James Kittapole on Instagram, all lowercase, and on YouTube, the Crunchy Medicine YouTube page. Hot fire questions. Be sure to comment down below. All right, Eric, I got a few.
Okay.
I got a few questions for you, buddy. So,
What do we got?
you know, just in watching this documentary, uh, that whole we're gonna circle back a little bit to Isaiah Thomas. I don't know how much of this we'll get to, but I'll try to shoot out. You know, Isaiah Thomas, MJ sort of he tried. I think we saw as close to a resolution as you're gonna get when he said, Isaiah Thomas, and this is as clear as as clear as mud. Him
Mm,
saying like, um, Isaiah Thomas, besides Magic Johnson, is the greatest
Johnson.
point guard I've ever played against.
Hmm.
And it just kind of made me think about and then seeing Kobe at the beginning of the documentary. It was just like, I'm glad him and Shaq had a chance to bury the hatchet while he was still alive. And so the
Yeah.
question is, would you rather see MJ and LeBron do an interview together like Kobe and Shaq did, or Michael Jordan and Isaiah Thomas in the same room, just them talking to each other?
That's easy. Um, it would be Michael Jordan and Isaiah Thomas.
And okay, so why and what would be said in those what do you think would be said in those interviews?
What would be said? I think it's almost anything that we can possibly predict. They're going to recap what happened.
Hmm.
They're going to recap, intention compared to what things look like. Because a lot of times, your intention isn't shown. Like what you're trying to do, the way it looks,
Yeah.
will always overshadow your intention. And maybe Isaiah Thomas will be able to clear things up, and whatnot about it. I think only good things can come out where Michael Jordan and LeBron James, like, why would they, like, what are they going to talk about?
Well,
It's going to be LeBron James. What are they going to talk about?
well,
That's the one that we need.
hmm So the one that we
Have you
need,
seen the one where it was? Have you seen the one where
Isaiah
Magic,
Thomas and
Isaiah?
Magic, right?
Amazing. Kobe
Yeah.
Bryant, Shaq. Those were made. Yeah, I would much rather see a Jordan Isaiah Thomas than a Jordan LeBron.
Because that's the given. Like, I mean, one, do you think Jordan will ever do something like that?
I don't think so.
It's
I don't
just
think so. For what? For what?
I don't know. Like just I think with Kobe's death, it just brings about a whole new like like this stuff is what we played on the court. I don't know, but with the MJ and LeBron thing, it's with the MJ and LeBron thing, it's like that's the mystery package. Whereas MJ and Isaiah Thomas, yeah, you're probably gonna get some fireworks, but at the end of the day, you're gonna get reconciliation, hopefully, right?
Yeah. I mean, dude. No matter how much you hate somebody or there's animosity throughout years, if you sit down and have a real talk with that person, it's gonna there's always gonna be something good
Yeah.
out of it. Not that you're gonna be, freaking best friends or anything, but there's something that's gonna be good out of it
Yeah.
because these are two people that, they like no matter how bad it is, they respect each other's game, they respect each
Mhm.
other's careers and accomplishments. But if you have that talk with each other, then things will be different.
Yeah. All right, moving on.
Moving on.
If you could take one aspect of the 90s and 80s games, like one singular aspect, and add it to today, what would it be?
Oh, jeez. The it would. Oh, jeez. Dang, man, you coming out with some heaters. Probably. I'd probably say it's not so much something added to it, but I wish there was more of a. No, I mean, players can be friends with each other outside of the league or whatnot. I
Yeah.
just wish it was a little less documented. I wish there were less friendships.
You wish it was a
As
little
travel.
more left to ambiguity, like left to the imagination of the audience.
Yeah, if y'all are cool outside of the game, if
That's
y'all
cool.
practice together, your family's cool with each other.
Yeah.
I don't want to know that until I don't want to know that until y'all are retired.
Right. It's kind of like you're over the whole jersey trading thing. Like,
It's almost I hate to say it, man. It's almost corny, dude.
yeah, it's almost a
uh,
publicity stunt. Like when they do it, it's like, oh,
It could be,
I'm
but
that
look,
I'm that
yeah,
guy.
look, good for y'all. Y'all are friends. Good for you. But one thing I loved about the '90s, it was competitive. These guys were very competitive with each other, and they weren't even if you further. We're not talking, but I'm just saying it's
Yeah.
competitive wise. I just wish they were a little less friendly.
You know what's funny though with that? I just realized, and this is something I just thought of. You know who doesn't trade jerseys, but is a player that is perceived as just like a guy who does his job, and not over the top fireworky or anything?
Oh, jeez. I don't know.
Kawhi
Who?
Leonard.
Kawhi Leonard.
I've never seen him trade a jersey.
I'm
I've
sure it's happened.
I've
but
never
I'm
even
sure
seen him.
I'm sure. Yeah. I'm sure somebody like him, when you bring it up, he's just like, yeah, sure. I mean, why do you want to do that?
I mean, we read it a year ago, dude. We were all over him as far as his laugh. Oh my god.
That is so messed up. This dude that's so guarded
Yeah.
and quiet
He's so reserved.
because maybe he's not the most charismatic or has the best personality, but is a killer on the basketball court. The time when we see a little bit, he opens up a
A
little bit
little
and shows
bit.
a little bit of himself, and he has this awkward laugh, and the internet
Goes
gets all
berserk.
over him
Yeah,
about it.
goes berserk.
This
Hey, but
dude,
he's the
this
one
dude's a,
laughing though.
this dude's a meme legend all of a sudden, and and that's why. You know what? I don't blame you, boy.
Yeah.
Be sheltered, dude. Don't let anybody in. But yeah, that would be it. Hey
Right.
man, am I just answering these, or are you answering these too?
No, I answered it. Okay, my answer to that would be just um the physicality. I think is something I'd like to see a little or more freedom to defend because
Yes.
not the Pistons defense, but more
No,
along the lines
that's-
of like the Bulls defense because the Bulls actually did play defense.
Oh,
You know, they were fantastic at
can
it.
you imagine? Can you imagine in the
Mhm.
'90s being the Chicago Bulls? You had the number one. I mean, they didn't win Defensive Player of the Year, but can you imagine you had the number one and number two defender? Maybe they're not number one, number two, but they're easily the best defensive duo in
Yeah.
the league. Can you imagine that?
Today. Yeah. Oh, okay. So that leads us right into our next question then.
Mm.
Time machine game. You only get one matchup. You get one matchup. You don't think too much about it, but think about it. Which two NBA teams play and the game takes place in 2005?
The game takes place in 2005.
Correct.
I can choose, and we're choosing
Any
team.
two teams. Any two teams from any era. And the game takes place in 2005. And the reason I choose 2005, and maybe you can say something about this, I think the mid 2000s were almost like the perfect. Stardom-wise, it wasn't. But play style-wise, it was the best of both worlds. It was still physical. And at that point, guard play was better facilitated. You know? It was fast.
Good. I'm
and it
glad
was-
you said that, and also, it's hilarious that you brought up 2005 because that's the best year to bring up to have a finals, or should I say, have a finals replace? Because in 2005, it was the San Antonio Spurs versus the Detroit Pistons. It went to 7 games. This is not a real stat. I'm not surprised if it's going to be true.
Right.
Both teams averaged maybe 85 points a game. It was the worst NBA Finals of all time. I don't know how the ratings work.
Worse. It was worse than the 18 one?
Huh?
It was worse than the Cavs Warriors and when the Cavs didn't have Kyrie Irving and whatnot. I think that might be the worst. I don't know. Okay, so you're saying ratings wise, right?
I'm talking about ratings. I'm
Yeah.
talking about interest.
Okay.
And it was just two great defensive teams that were boring. It was
The Spurs. You thought the Spurs were boring? I thought the Spurs like their teamwork. It's so cool, but I guess against different opponents, it's much more fun to see.
The Spurs were winners, and they will always get credit for that. The Spurs were winners. They're not a fun team to watch. Okay.
Yeah, I feel you.
And this finals, dude, it was the Pistons and the Spurs. It went to 7 games. I'm not lying, dude. I watched a total. I'm not talking about game time. I'm talking about total time. I watched maybe minutes out of the whole series. I'm like, I can't believe this is not it. So I'm glad you chose 2005. I think that was unintentional.
Yeah, no, it was completely unintentional. Let me answer the question real quick. Ryan, that's my cousin who's on the other end. Yeah, but
can you tell we look alike?
with the mustache and everything and the hair. Oh yeah, there's a picture of me in the background. Yeah, but the reason I chose 2005 was because again, the game was still
the balance
physical.
Of what? Yeah.
Correct. It was almost the perfect world. I mean, I may be biased, is because I grew up in the mid 2000s. That's when I started watching. Kobe, Kobe, 8 Kobe, and LeBron's first stint. Yeah. So which two teams? If you need time, we'll come back to it. But I can give mine.
No. I'll do it right now. It's not. I don't have the. Damn. I don't have the actual. Damn. Yeah.
I'll let you think about it. But can I tell you mine?
Yes, I want to know yours.
Mine is going to be the '96 Bulls. Okay?
Yeah.
The '96 Bulls and the Heat team that beat the San Antonio Spurs in 7.
Oh.
So LeBron James at his absolute peak, when LeBron James he did have the killer instinct. He was clutch. And that team, it's not just, the given is LeBron versus MJ, right? But then you have Dwayne Wade, you have Chris Bosh, you have that whole Heat team was really, really good. You had, off the bench, Ray Allen, Shane Battier.
isn't Udonis Haslam's jersey not retired yet? That is the most
Oh, I thought it
loyal.
was.
That is the greatest role player to stay loyal to the team. Right. And the second place would be Donald Foyle. Okay. There's no. They know about it like
Yeah, he took
Udonis
pay
Haslam.
cuts and everything. No, but yeah, the reason I choose those two teams again is LeBron versus MJ. That's the given. But you got everybody else that contributes to it. We
Yeah.
know what the '96 team did, but a lot of people don't remember that
Yeah.
13 Heat team with LeBron at the helm.
Mhm.
They went on a 28-0 run in the season. It was
That's a
ridiculous.
record. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a record.
it was ridiculous. And yeah, I just felt like physicality wise they could match up with the Bulls.
Yeah.
And that's a team I'd like to see in
Okay.
2005 played out. So I'll let you think about it. We
No,
may
no, no. I got it right now. I got
You
it right now.
got it? All right, let's go. Which
Yeah, I got it. But I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go a little on the fence in the beginning, but I'm gonna come out with the answer because there's three teams. Okay.
Oh, okay. All right.
And
All
there's
right.
three teams. There's three teams against one team. And I think when you have this debate, it's always going to be the 95-96 Chicago Bulls, right?
That's the given.
That's the given. That's always going to be the base. Okay, the first team I would love to see them play against is the 2000-2001 Los Angeles
Los
Lakers.
Angeles Lakers. Yep.
Of course,
Okay.
the one that went. I don't know. I think it was 17-1 in the
In the
playoffs.
playoffs. Yeah.
And their one loss was against Allen Iverson, who scored like 50-something points in overtime. Game one, stepped over Tyronn Lue. Everybody remembers that. That's an easy one. Okay, number one. Number two, I would pick the same year as you,
The Heat.
the Miami Heat super team.
Mm-hmm.
Featuring Miami Heat LeBron James. That was freight train LeBron James. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he put
That's
on
what
he put on a few more pounds. He was still lightning fast though. He was still
Yes,
lightning fast.
that's scary.
Yeah.
I'll say that one. Chris Bosh, D Wade, and then the other team. Of course, you got to go with the 2017 NBA champion, Golden State Warriors. Right?
Okay, so you're going three teams.
Would you say that's a solid three? Like that would be the top
Sure.
three pick, right? I'm not picking no team in the 80s. Like I'm not
Yeah.
doing that.
Really?
I don't care.
I don't know though.
I
I
ain't
guess
doing
the other two teams, and they're not really NBA. Okay, I know the question was NBA teams, but if we're gonna go there, I'd like
Yeah.
to see the Redeem team versus the Dream team.
Yeah,
To which I
that
think the
would be
Dream
good.
team, I think the Dream team probably would still win, but like,
That's funny you say that. Yeah.
yikes, you got Kobe.
I would
Yeah.
respectfully disagree with that.
Oh, you take new school.
I would take the 2018 if for whatever reason
Ooh.
the original Dream Team
All
had
right.
Shaquille O'Neal instead of Christian Laettner. The original Dream Team.
Mhm. All right.
But actually, no, I take no, you're right. Yeah, original Dream Team. I'm sorry, because if you're talking about bigs, never mind. Yeah, the bigs in the original Dream Team was.
Well, no, in my heart of hearts, which
Yeah.
is a Skip Bayless saying, for goodness sake, my heart of hearts, I would
Yeah.
want.
That's
Obviously,
blasphemous.
that's blasphemous, Kevin. I would obviously want the team that I grew up watching to win. But
Yeah.
if like just objectively, who would I think would win? Probably the Dream Team, if only because of the dominance inside the paint.
Yeah.
Because guard play, I think you got to give it to the 2018. But yeah, that's if and that's a fun question I like to ask basketball
That's a
oriented
fun
people.
question. But enough of being on the fence. I'm gonna go ahead. I'm only choosing the Lakers.
Lock in,
team
yeah,
just
lock
because-
in. Lakers.
I'm only choosing
Yep.
the Lakers team because how are they gonna deal with Shaquille O'Neal, Michael Jordan, and Kobe Bryant? You could say they cancel each other out.
Who would you say was the third? Was the three, or was the X factor on the Lakers? Was it Robert Ory? Was it Rick Fox? Was it
the X factor on?
Because for the Bulls it would be Dennis, right? But for the Lakers,
Easy,
who would
yeah.
it be?
Their third, I don't know, man. Their third could just be a unit. It could be a unit. It could be a combination of Derek Fisher, Robert Fox. Rick Fox.
'Cause that was a pretty good team. Like they were still a solid team. They had a bunch
but,
of veterans.
It's,
They had
it's
Gary
anchored-
Payton.
No, Gary Payton was 2004.
Well, oh no, yeah, Gary Payton, and then he
That
went to the Heat as well.
That was a legit super team
Yeah,
as far as names. They had Karl Malone and Gary Payton, but we're talking about a different team.
yeah.
But that 01-02 team or whatever, I think it was 02, whatever. The second the second of the Lakers three-peat, that team, yeah, there was no third. The third, the third star was just a combination of whatever their role players did because it was anchored by Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal, like two alphas.
Yeah.
You know.
And the speculate, yeah, but yeah. So that's a fun question I like to ask basketball
So
oriented
yeah,
people. So
yeah, I would go, yeah, Lakers, dude.
Lakers, okay.
Lakers and Bulls.
So I got three more questions for you. I maybe
Sure.
um kind of segueing into a
There's
more
there's no time limit to this, right? Because Instagram.
no. There is no time limit, but I just I had only three more that kind of
Okay.
over the. And if you have honestly, if you have fire questions for next week,
I have nothing, dude.
yeah.
I took a few notes from last night. What I
Oh,
might
you
like to
take
talk about, but
notes?
I feel like,
All right,
I
look
feel
at
like
you go.
we always have something to talk about. We always like I have
Yeah.
nothing important. Let's go. Let's
All
go to
right.
the next part.
So, we were talking earlier in the year about what uh what ambassador slash representative would be a would be the best guest to appear on Joe Rogan, and I have two candidates for you. Between
Joe Rogan. Oh, we've talked about this, but yeah.
yeah, we talked about this, but not in the way that I'm about to bring it up. Between
Sure.
Ernie Johnson and Mike Breen, who'd be a better guest on Joe Rogan?
Mike
on the
who?
Mike Breen, you know who he is?
No.
Mike Breen is the
I-
guy who, well, first, he broadcasts all the Knicks games, and he's the guy who he's the bang guy.
That's
Now we're
the
talking.
Bang. Oh, that's right.
The
Ray
bang
Allen
guy,
scored three
so
in the
he has
corner. Bang.
he has broadcasting
Kobe Bryant
experience.
for the win.
He has
Bang.
interview experience. I sent you a thing. I don't know if you saw it. He interviewed Jeremy Lin, and he's just such a natural guy to
Yeah.
like. He's a good. But on the other hand, in the other corner, you got Ernie Johnson. That's like
Yeah.
pretty solid.
Wait,
Between those
Are
two,
you
who would
telling me
you?
choose between them two?
Yep, between them two, who would be a better guest on Joe Rogan?
Okay, I'm not choosing a Joe Rogan like of anybody. I'm not choosing a Joe.
Nope, just those two. Just those two.
Rogan. I'm only going this out of familiarity, and I'm just gonna say Ernie Johnson,
Ernie Johnson.
just out of familiarity. But
Yeah.
they both must have amazing stories to tell. Like
Correct.
they're coming up and whatnot.
You were probably expecting me to say like Stephen A. or Skip Bayless or some shit.
No, I would have. Yeah, I would have. So you think Mike Breen and Ernie Johnson would be?
I just think from an ambassador's perspective, one, they're very professional, But on top of that, it's like you said, they have stories because they've been around the scene for years. It's like
Yeah.
they've been in this, and it's the you got to think Joe Rogan. He almost has the same tenure, but for the UFC, right?
Yeah.
Joe Rogan has that perspective, of just covering the sport and being a broadcaster. And for lack of a better term, those two guys are broadcasters.
Yeah.
They're master. These are all three masters of their craft. Joe
Well,
Rogan, Mike Breen, and Ernie.
Johnson is more. When was Ernie? I guess yeah.
Ernie was NBC. I think. Well, don't quote me on that. But before, he used to do
Yeah.
pregame, and he'd be like Ali LaFoe just at games, and talking about how Jordan wasn't going to be at the game or whatnot. And yeah, Mike Breen just the broadcasting side of things.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, these are both great choices, but literally, I'm only going out of Johnson. But
Mhm.
god damn, I'd be happy with any of these.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a
Yeah.
good one. And who was your pick again? Or did you say it already?
Oh God, I think my pick would have to be, or it would probably be Ernie Johnson, just because of A, familiarity, but B, just like yeah. But Mike Breen just would not be a bad second at all, just because he has that iconic voice at this point. His voice is basketball history.
Yeah, very much true.
Right. Maybe segueing. We got two questions left.
All right, let's go.
Segueing maybe away from basketball a little bit, taking a step back. Who is the most pure athlete you've ever seen? An athlete that's not driven by ego, one who just wants to do his or her job. I have my answer, but you think about it. Let me repeat the question.
Wait, hold on. Here, repeat the question again.
Yeah. Who in all sports that you've ever seen in your whole life
Yeah.
is the most pure athlete? And this question was kind of derived. I thought of this as I saw Jordan, because he's driven by something. He's driven by the need to either prove other people wrong or to be just for the sake of being the best or for other reasons, right? But
Yeah.
when I say pure, just like a person who just loved their sport and like was the most pure, not innocent, but just pure athlete that you've ever seen.
Damn. Okay.
Do you
I have
want
a
me to
few
go first, or
answers.
do you know?
I have a few answers. I hate that I don't have a definitive answer, and I hate that I'm on the fence, and I'm depending on you to hear your answer to better solidify what I'm gonna say.
Sure.
But let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and hear what you're gonna say.
All right. So my answer, I mean, it's hard. There's no definitive, right? There's so many.
Yeah.
Not driven by ego. It's just someone who just wants to do their job, And for me, and I have to go with Khabib Nurmagomedov, because
Oh,
yeah,
Khabib.
yeah. Just think
Yeah.
about it. This guy, this guy, he's undefeated.
This guy, huh?
This guy,
Brother,
huh?
brother,
This guy, they
brother,
bother, make everybody
brother.
speak bad English, huh? But
This is number one bullshit.
bullshit. Yeah, but he just think about it from a pure athletic standpoint. One, he's a
Yeah.
world class, top tier, possibly in the conversation of greatest of all time in his field, right?
Oh, he's in the
One of the
conversation
best
already.
who has ever done it, even if he does lose, right? Whatever. But on top of that,
I'll tell
just
you right now. See here. So sorry, I'm just gonna briefly.
no, do it. Yeah, yeah.
Khabib is the only fighter in this discussion that you can say undisputed, undefeated. He's the only one. Anyways,
Really? I mean, you could say that. Who's the other in the UFC? Like,
undefeated?
yeah.
No one. Anyone that's in this conversation of greatest all-time mixed martial artists, nobody's undefeated.
I guess
except
the
for-
only other person you could say is John Jones, because people don't really hold that first defeat
John
against him.
Jones, yeah.
But I wouldn't put John Jones in there.
Even if that loss is an asterisk, even if it's an asterisk, even if it's not a real loss,
It's still a
there.
loss. Yeah.
And
Correct.
John Jones has a few other issues.
Correct.
Yeah.
Which
But
is why
yeah,
he's
go ahead,
not he's nowhere near in the conversation for me. Yeah, Khabib, it's just
He's
like
in it. Oh, John Jones.
no. When I say pure, most pure athlete, most pure, just like pure hearted.
God
You know?
damn, I never thought about that.
Yeah, because
It's
Khabib.
so funny because like my thing is MMA.
Yep.
Like my main sport that I'm most interested in.
Hmm.
And as soon as you ask that question, I'm only thinking about traditional sports. But
Yeah, I mean, just from a holistic standpoint, it can be anybody, man. It can be like
Khabib, god damn, Khabib, that's good, man.
it can be anybody. It doesn't. Their record, they don't necessarily have to be in the GOAT conversation, because then we could bring in people like bring in people like Klay Thompson. You know, he's dude. He just loves his job. He's just really hella good at it, and he's like the most neutral.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Khabib, and the reason I say is not only because of his tenure, but because of his dude. The dude turned down like 100 million to fight in Russia. Like it's just he's turned down money, and he's openly said, you know, if you do this, I will not fight in your league again. You know,
Yeah.
I'll just retire. You're the one who's gonna have to deal with the loss, and it's like I just want to go out and do my thing. I don't want to deal with all this other bullshit. You know, which is. Yeah, my answer would be Khabib, but that probably hit you out of nowhere. It's probably not a fair question. You probably haven't had time to think about it.
Man. Jeez, Khabib, dude.
Yeah.
Because Khabib, he made his money. He's good. He doesn't need money.
No.
Okay, from his success, especially that Conor fight. Before that, he was probably fine. Like, look, I don't need money. This is why that's a good answer, because he's about legacy. He's about what's right. He's about pride. You know.
Yeah.
And that's why he would. Yeah.
Which is why I think when he went into the stands, it was so uncharacteristic of him, because it had gotten to him, which is why people. Yeah, we could talk about the matchup another day, but yeah, do you still have an answer, or do you want maybe this next question?
There's three athletes once again on the fence segment of the answer.
Yeah, that's fine.
I had Deion Sanders. You know who Deion Sanders is, right?
Yeah.
The original Primetime.
Primetime. Yep.
Deion Sanders. I had LeBron James.
Okay.
And then, but my answer is Bo Jackson. So.
Bo Jackson. Dude his hands were like, was it Brian Callen that was telling a story about his hands, just like the fact that his hands were just ginormous.
I don't know if it's Bo Jackson.
Yeah, I don't know, but that's a
Bo
good
Jackson
answer. That's a great answer.
Down.
Why?
Anybody that because Bo Jackson was around at a different time too. Also another time of no social media, no documentation and whatnot. But literally, Bo Jackson legacy is like stories from the playground, stories from
Yeah.
his classmates or whatever. But Bo Jackson, also, he barely played professionally, and he's still in the conversation of the greatest athlete of all time. But as far,
Hmm.
yeah, all that, yeah, I'd say Bo Jackson.
Yeah. All right. So we're at our final question, and before we get into our
Really?
final, yeah, before we get into our final one, I just want to say again, for those of you listening, thank you for tuning in. Um, if you have anything to contribute or you want us to discuss a particular subject, feel free to comment or down below, or hit the subscribe button, or contact me personally if you're my friend. Um,
Absolutely. If
yeah,
you like what you're watching, do yourself a favor. It's free. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. It's free. Just do it.
I love my cousin. All right, Eric, since you said the UFC is your main sport of interest, right? It has been your main sport of interest for how long now?
Oh, jeez. My main sport. Since probably like 2010,
Okay, so
2011.
you have a good
As my
groundwork
main,
of
I've always been a fan of it.
right.
It's always been in my queue. But as
Yeah.
far as like it being my main favorite sport, yeah, probably like 2010.
So the last question, maybe I should have ended on the other one. Goodness, how. But this one is just uh kind of crossed my mind. Just what are some of the differences, main differences between an NBA athlete and a UFC athlete, and what separates it for you, like, because you seem to. Yeah, you derive viewership off the UFC, and I agree. And quite frankly, I agree with you. Like the
Yeah.
UFC is the best thing in sports right now that people don't know about. Like
Uh,
mostly,
there.
mostly, mostly. It's still kind of a niche thing, but
Wait.
competitiveness.
Okay. Wait. What do you ask me again? What are their similarities or
No,
what?
what are the differences? What are some of the main differences between an NBA athlete and a UFC athlete?
Uh, I mean I don't know, man. That's kind of tough because as far as differences, I don't know. I'm not gonna get to that yet. I'll talk about their similarities,
Hmm.
and the main one is that both of them are top notch, conditioned athletes, like in anything, like their endurance and their
Yeah.
lung capacity, strength, and all that. I think they're both of them are similar that way. But as far as the differences, I don't know. I mean, it's just depending on what
I guess this is a better question. Real last
depending
question.
on
Why?
yeah, but what?
Uh, and maybe as a teaser for a continued conversation next week.
Sure.
Why? Um, why should someone watch the UFC? And because you got me into it, and I've been hooked since
Um.
2016/17. It's like I could not.
Yeah.
Before I saw it, it's like, oh, okay, this is Eric's freaking. It's the same. I'd go as far as I'd lob it in with WWE, but it is not. You know.
There's okay. There's always a famous saying that MMA, like the roots of MMA, always comes from professional wrestling. Yes, professional wrestling. I don't want to say. First of all, professional wrestling is not fake. It's choreographed. It's
Hmm.
still like these are still top notch athletes.
Yep.
Um, there's something that comes from that, but something about the UFC, like white man, because I've always loved UFC or mixed martial arts, and I never really understood why until Dana White. He made a good point. He was like, like anytime if you see if we're having dinner and you see someone fighting or fight brewing, you're watching.
You
In
are
a
watching it.
restaurant,
Yep. Yep.
if you're in the street, if you're at a damn flea market and a fight breaks out, you're watching it. There's
Yeah.
something very intriguing about fights, but I think it's not just that. Now it's not just that because it's about their stories, man. Because fighters, their stories, their struggle is a little more relatable to us. I think
Hmm.
like we can relate a little bit more because they're a little more. Not that professional athletes aren't human, but they're a little more like we can relate more from a human standpoint than someone like a LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, Cristiano Ronaldo. Like we can't like fighters we can relate to more because no matter how much money they make, there's still a side to them that we can relate to,
Yeah.
and that's what I always appreciated about MMA fighters. But it's just something about like the anticipation of a fight where you know the story behind it, you know what's on the line.
Hmm.
It doesn't like a game 7 can't touch that. A game 7 of an NBA Finals, a Super Bowl game doesn't touch the anticipation, what's on the line, the stories behind these fighters, what they've gone through, why they hate each other, why they need to win so bad. It doesn't. It's not comparable.
I'd almost compare it to like every time you see a UFC like title fight, it's a game 7
Yeah,
every single time, and there are multiple game 7s that happen. That no,
yeah,
no, I take it back. There may not be a game 7 that will happen. It's not guaranteed. You know,
yeah,
the fight. It's not like in the NBA where you will get a definitive matchup of who's the best of best, like who should be in there. You know,
yeah.
whereas with the UFC, it may not like with this Khabib and Tony thing, man. It who knows if it you know
Yeah.
it's not guaranteed, and the result when I say not guaranteed, like the matchup isn't even guaranteed. The dream matchup that everyone wants to see is not guaranteed. You know, there are certain elements that have to fall into place for a fight to be made,
Yeah.
for a fight to be
Ups,
deemed
yeah.
worthy of a UFC event. You know.
And in fighting, upsets happen and all that. But I've never look. This is just me though. I mean, I'm saying other people don't like this, but
Yeah.
there are certain fights where like I request a day off and I literally can't like once it's Saturday
You don't check social
and
media.
as the time what
You don't check social media on those days.
if I've worked
Yeah.
on a night of a UFC event, I don't check social media. But if there's a fight that I need to watch, it's already requested off. I have it off. I have fans. I'm at a friend's house.
Yeah.
But as the time ticks down, my anxiety, I can't wait. I can't believe this fight is happening, and I'm just like I'm so amped. I can't explain it, dude. Like there's only been a few fights that
I've
just
seen that
couldn't-
firsthand. That's a real
Wait,
tangible anxiety.
Which one? Which fight?
I prime example would be the Khabib and Conor McGregor fight. You were
Yeah.
you were nervous.
I was. I didn't have. I had that same level of anticipation and anxiety
Yeah.
just because of the name value. But when I saw Conor McGregor, it's like that ain't him. That's not.
Yeah.
He's not tip top of what he could be.
Correct.
Not saying him tip top could beat Khabib, but goddamn, like give me a better chance. There's just certain fights, man. The first time actually both times Jon Jones DC fought.
Yeah.
God damn it, I lost it.
That should have.
I couldn't.
It's a storyline, and I think what you're getting at is, yeah, you said to me multiple times, I get anxiety, I get nervous just thinking about it because it's not like you really want both sides to lose or win. It might actually be.
There's a point. These are two people. Like a lot of times, they're two people at the top. They're like you can't get anything better than these two, and they fight each other, and someone has to lose. You know,
yeah,
that's crazy. And even if someone like Colby and Usman, you saw that fight?
Yep.
I couldn't handle that, dude. I was like, this fight, especially because the fight was amazing. It was all on the field, amazing. And I'm watching this, I'm like, oh my god, someone has to lose the fight, you know?
This was well before social distancing. I was watching it with friends, and they weren't as well versed in UFC. I had to be you, like to me.
It's kind of tough to
But even they picked up on, dude, this is an insane fight. They didn't know half of the build up, and when they saw the fight, it's like, this is something else.
It's just
yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Kind of weird because if you compare it to football, baseball, basketball, UFC is a very young sport.
It's very young. It's in its infancy.
And it's kind of tough to like pick your audience or pick the people that you want to watch it with because it's very frustrating watching with people that don't really know the sport. That's why I'm very selective who I watch it with.
Yeah.
Wait, hold on. What question is this? Like, what happened? What are we doing right now?
Well, no, I mean, it was a follow-up question. The original question was, what are some of the main differences between the NBA athlete and a UFC athlete? But I think what I was trying to get at with you was because you introduced me to UFC, and because to this day I still follow it like anybody else now. Like I've been trying to do this. I not like baptize someone else in the way of the UFC, but it's just like, dude, there's a whole different. If you take it, it's like your take on traditional sports. If you take a step back and look at all these, it doesn't even have to be the UFC. It can be one. It can be K1. Like these different martial arts. It's a totally different level of competitiveness. It's a totally different level of craft. And just like, hey, it's drama. People watch sports for the entertainment factor. Right? It's a totally different level of entertainment.
Yeah.
It's just the very visceral watching people try to bash each other's brains in, for lack of a better term.
Yeah. If you think about what's on the line, if you think about basketball, what's on the line every game is like your joints. Like your knees.
Yeah.
this will pay off at some point.
And it will
Years down
in the
line.
NBA. It'll pay off because of the freaking money. But like,
but I'm saying like as a fighter, like every time you go in there, there's a chance. Almost every time, you're not going to be the same person when you're done fighting.
Yeah, that's a risk.
What's your answer?
Oh, to the original or to the why someone should watch UFC?
No, to the original.
To the original, I think the main difference is just how athletes have to train and condition themselves. Because now, the hours they put in are probably the same, but with fighting, you also have to take into account like weight. There's a cutting season.
Yeah.
It's like and with that, there's a whole, and because of the physical aspect of the sport, it dictates and sort of comments on the mental aspect of the sport. You are preparing yourself to go beat someone up to legally. You have to sign a waiver. The state has sanctioned at that level. The state has sanctioned it. Yeah, you're in there, and it's okay. It's not assault. Otherwise it's assault. And so that's it. I think it's one of the most captivating things in sports today. I just think people should maybe, if they're bored, if they're saying, "Oh, there's nothing going on in the sporting world right now when basketball or football isn't a thing," it's just like you aren't really trying to watch more sports. You're just saying you're bored to say you're bored. You at least try something else.
Yes.
Eric, this has been a good conversation, man. We've kind of reached, I think, the peak of where we're going for today. Is there anything else you'd want to say before we wrap up?
There's a lot that I want to say, but there's one thing I do want to touch base.
Sure.
Through this quick. I don't know if I was out of it or kind of burnt out watching the documentary. How was Horace Grant a snitch?
I don't know. They kind of made him look like a snitch, but like, it's. Yeah, I look at you right now. It seems like It seems like you got something to say there.
No, I have nothing to say about this.
Horace,
I wrote this down. I wrote this down on my computer.
Gotcha.
Horace Grant, the snitch. I wrote this on my computer
in
my notes to talk about this during our show or whatnot. But I don't remember how he was a snitch. But apparently Horace was.
And did the team treat him as such? They did, right?
I don't know. Maybe I need to rewatch it.
Yeah. Okay.
That's number one. And another thing that I'm just gonna retouch on, that I've talked about this the last 2 times we've done this, but it's not documented. I just love how this is a documentary about, in the late 90s, we have no sports right now, and they're literally giving us sports. They're giving us something to talk about. They're giving ESPN sports shows something to talk about.
Yep.
And the most fascinating thing about all this is that they're really getting into it as far as debating, going over it again. And the best part is that we know what happened. We know what happens. We know how the ending is.
You can't spoil it. Yeah.
You can't spoil it. We know who wins. We know what happens. But this is interesting enough to where we're still tuned in. We still want to hear people's opinions, and I think it's great.
Yeah. Well.
Also, what's the name of this? What is the name of? What would you say the name of this channel is?
Oh, the channel that this is going to be going on is called Crunchy Medicine. It's going to be on YouTube.
Crunchy Medicine. This is on YouTube.
Crunchy Medicine. Yep. Follow it on YouTube, or follow the Twitch channel. I do also do video game playthroughs. Hopefully with you soon. If you want to play some Warzone later on.
Yeah. If you wanna lose all your followers, you should have to watch me. Warzone.
No, you should have to watch me, man. I'm not a good gamer at all. If you want to feel better about your self-esteem as a gamer and as an individual, watch me play.
I do have an episode. I have an episode coming out tomorrow night, and I will mention your show.
Thank you, man. Go ahead and plug yourself right now. Who are you? Where can we find you, and what is your show?
Yeah, sure.
What's your name? Yeah.
I have an Instagram live show. I go by the name of Doctor _ Primetime. I have an Instagram live show I call Deep Thoughts spelled THOTS, where I talk about, if you want to hear dudes or myself talk about bro science and nothing, and literally nothing, check it out. If you want to waste an hour of your life, maybe get a few laughs, yeah, check it out. This is no plug or whatnot. I'm only asking James so I can plug his show so he can gain. So hopefully he can gain, one of my maybe my 3 followers. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, folks, that's my cousin Eric for you. Yeah. Um, if you would like to follow along with next week's episode, we will be talking again about The Last Dance, episode 7 and 8.
And who
So
knows? There might be something in between. There might be some news about MMA or whatnot. We might do something in between. You never know. But you got to stay tuned. That's why you got to hit the subscribe, the like button. How are you supposed to find out? Get updated. Guess what? It's free. Just do it. It's free.
yeah. Anyway, so if you'd like to follow on that, ESPN does do a broadcast of these episodes every Sunday at 9 Eastern. You can follow along there, however way you see fit. Again, if you have any sports topics that you'd like us to talk about, they don't even necessarily have to be about basketball, fighting. They can be about any topic sports related in general. Anything is on the table. Please feel free to comment below, or please feel free to contact either me or Eric. Oh, Eric.
It's probably better you contact him, but yeah.
Yeah, mostly. Yeah. Well, guys, I appreciate it. Eric, I appreciate you being on. And we'll see you guys next week.